Desperate housing market. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. I wanted to cover this. This is coming up a lot in the news. The supply of new homes for sale right now, July 2025, it's the highest number of unsold homes, new homes, since the housing crash in 2007. So that's almost 20 years ago. We've come full circle. We're right back to very low demand for buying homes. I'm going to explain why, okay? The housing market is in sort of desperate conditions right now. So new home builders are offering buyer incentives that are 300% higher than normal, and it's really eating into their profits. Several new home builders are offering 9% purchase incentives on the total value of the home. So, for example, for $1 million home, a 9% incentive would be $90,000, right? So this is about 3 times higher than normal. And they're having to do that to move inventory because we have the highest number of unsold homes since the housing crash in 2007. So here's the present condition of the home builders, okay? D.R. Horton, the stock price is in a bear market. They're reporting their home sales orders are down sharply. Lennar, the stock price has fallen 40% due to increased buyer incentives. And they're using the same incentives that all the other ones are using to get their supply of new homes, their inventory sold. Just huge incentives, 40% stock price drop. Pulte Homes, their stock has fallen 23%, again due to weak sales. Toll Brothers, their stocks dropped 28%. They report having to offer high incentives and very weak sales. KB Homes, their stock has dropped 37%, and they're reporting very weak sales and having to offer incentives. So it's kind of the same story with all the new home builders. Weak sales, needing to offer high incentives to get their inventory sold. So what does the inventory look like? We're going to compare the current new home inventory to the housing crash days. There were pretty close to 500,000, I think it was a little bit over, 500,000 unsold homes in 2008. We were well into the housing crash at that point. Right now, we have 511,000 unsold new homes. The same levels, okay? The same levels as the housing crash years. So I want to now compare the Fed interest rates. The Fed lowered interest rates to 1/4%. Why? Okay, why in 2008 did the Federal Reserve lower interest rates to 0.25%? Think about that for a couple seconds. Answer? To lower mortgage rates, to move the 500,000, to get people buying homes again. There was a huge glut of homes, and a lot of the infrastructure supporting the purchase of homes was putting stress on government-sponsored entities like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and other entities throughout the home buying ecosystem in the U.S. The Fed lowered interest rates in 2008 to 1/4% in order to lower mortgage rates to 3.7%. So it has come up quite often, I've seen in the financial press, that you cannot blame the Fed for high mortgage rates. Yes, you can, okay? Because the Federal Reserve knows that if they lower interest rates, it will affect mortgage interest rates. That's why they lowered the rates back then during the housing crash, to get the inventory of homes sold, right? So think about the current level of interest rates for mortgages, 7%. We're at the same number of unsold homes as the housing crash, but they were fortunate that the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates and mortgage rates were low, and then that allowed people to start buying homes. Now we have 7% mortgage interest rates, and the Fed will not lower the Fed rate. So how long are we going to be stuck with this huge glut of homes? A long time. Until the Fed does what the Federal Reserve did back in 2008 and lowers interest rates, we're going to be stuck with a huge glut of unsold homes. We have sort of desperate housing market conditions for this reason. So I just want to stress, if you hear someone say the Fed cannot influence mortgage interest rates, mortgage loans, baloney. The Fed lowered interest rates to 1/4% in 2008. They dropped mortgage rates to 3.7% in order to move all of the unsold homes that existed back then. We have the same number of unsold homes now, and we have almost double the interest rates, the mortgage interest rates. So that is a problem. That is a big problem. That's not optimal. An optimal solution to this huge glut of homes, the same as in the housing crash, would be a similar mortgage rate. a lower mortgage interest rate. Can the Fed make that happen? Yes, they can, by lowering the Fed rate. It worked in 2008. It will work now, too. Okay? So the Fed lowered interest rates in 2008, and mortgage rates fell to 3.7%. So the Federal Reserve, can affect mortgage rates. So let's compare the unemployment rates during the times when interest rates were low. Interest rates were very low up until about 2022, when the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, started raising interest rates. Inflation got up to like 9.2%, and the Federal Reserve finally acted and started raising interest rates to tackle the inflation. So, but up until about 2022, we had very low interest rates. There are people right now who refinanced their home in 2021 and got a 2.5, 2.75, 3% mortgage interest loan. Remember, in the housing crash, mortgage rates dropped to 3.7%. Mortgage interest rates dropped to 2.5% as recently as 2019, 2020, 2021. And that's kind of what we need now. But the unemployment rate in 2017 was 4.1%, very similar to now. 4.2% is the unemployment rate. That's the claimed unemployment rate that we have now. In 2017, the unemployment rate was 4.1%, and there were 293,000 homes in supply, ready to be sold. 293,000. Right now, we have about the same claimed, if you believe the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, we have the same 4.2% unemployment, almost twice the number of unsold homes. Okay, so we do not trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. There have been so many layoffs because of artificial intelligence. So many businesses have closed their doors. A lot of layoffs. We do not believe the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers. We suspect that the Bureau of Labor Statistics data is being manipulated to provide cover for Jerome Powell to maintain 7%, these 7% mortgage interest rates. And there are various reasons why Jerome Powell might do that. Some of them might be political, but we do not trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers. So there's more to this story. Okay, so I want to compare three states, the data from three states right now in the present day, in the present time. California, Texas, and Florida. I'm going to compare unemployment rates, the number of home sales, and the population of the state, okay, for California, Texas, and Florida. Okay. California's unemployment rate is the second highest in the country. It's 5.4%. Okay, they have 40 million in population. 40 million population and 63,000 home sales so far in June of 2025. 40 million population in California, 5.4% unemployment, 63,000 home sales. Okay, Texas has much lower unemployment, 4% unemployment, and they have less population, 32 million. But they have twice the number of home sales, 128,000 in June of 2025. Okay, 4% unemployment, lower than California's, 128,000 home sales, twice the number of sales that California had, and lower population, 32 million, compared to 40 million in California. Florida, unemployment rate right now, 3.7%, one of the lowest in the United States right now. Only 24 million in population. California has 40 million people. Florida has 24 million. And 80,000 home sales in June of 2025. So Florida has 80,000 home sales in June. California has 63,000. Very high unemployment in California. But as the unemployment rate dropped from California's 5.4% to Florida's 3.7%, the number of home sales increased. And especially in Texas, it doubled. California 5.4% unemployment, Texas 4% unemployment. California 63,000 home sales, Texas 128,000 home sales. So the point that I'm making here, as the unemployment rate drops, the number of home sales increases. And the population, you would think with so many more people in California that there's no way Texas would have twice as many home sales, but that's the truth for June 2025. So the point I'm trying to make is this 4.2% unemployment rate that's supposed to be the national average, it can't possibly be true because we have just as many unsold homes as we had in 2008 in the crash. This is a bogus number. Texas has about the same unemployment, and they have twice the number of home sales that California had, and California has millions more in population. So we don't trust the 4.2%. We don't trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers. So the takeaway for this story, how we get out of the desperate housing market, we've got to get these homes sold. We've got to get back to the point where we were in 2017, a much lower number of home sales. And here's why, okay? When you sell a home, you will hire people to get your home ready for market. Landscaping people, perhaps, painting, new floor coverings like carpeting or tile or luxury vinyl tile. You will make any repairs to the electrical system, the roof. You might invest in new appliances, a kitchen remodel, or update some appliances. None of those jobs are being created right now because of this huge number, because of the artificially high mortgage interest rate, 7%. So we need to get these unsold homes sold to create jobs. It will help the job market. We know the job market sucks. We don't believe this number. We think the job market is much worse than this, because if we had the same unemployment rate that we had in 2017, we wouldn't have almost twice the number of unsold homes. It doesn't make sense. It's not rational. It's not logical. And then let's see here. So that kind of explains what's going on, why the housing market is in sort of desperate conditions right now. It boils down to artificially high interest rates. When back in 2008, the Fed lowered rates and the mortgage interest rates dropped. At some point, the mortgage interest rates fell below 3.7%. If they fell below 2% at one point, and people were able to get home loans in the 2% range. After 2008, the mortgage rate kept falling. If you refinanced your home during that time period before 2022, you could have gotten a 2% mortgage, 2.5%, 3% home loan. Below this, during the housing crash, the Fed lowered interest rates, and the unsold inventory of homes got bought out. So we need lower interest rates. We need to get home sales happening so people will have jobs, will get hired by homeowners selling their home. When you buy a home, you buy new furniture, perhaps appliances, painting, landscaping, perhaps roofing, the same kind of things you do when you sell the old place. So those jobs are not being created because we have too many unsold homes. So the labor market is weak. That is hurting people's confidence. The last thing someone wants to think about when they're worried about their job is getting a new home loan, right? Buying a new home. So the labor market is not in good shape. And the way to make it better is for the Federal Reserve to do what they did in 2008 and lower interest rates, because then mortgage rates will fall and home sales will recover, and the desperate housing market condition with all these unsold homes will be fixed. It's really what we need at this time. So if you know anybody who is working in the housing industry, realtors, brokers, finance people like home loan people, if you talk to them, they, especially in states like California, California, almost the highest unemployment in the country, they have less than half the number of home sales that Texas had. And Texas is a smaller state, less population. If you talk to people throughout the country in the housing market, they will say these are dark times. These are desperate times for the housing market. So on the bright side, things can be improved. And they will be improved eventually. At some point, somebody in the Federal Reserve will take a look back at 2008, and ask the question, how did the Federal Reserve in the housing crash get all those unsold homes sold? Answer, they lowered interest rates. That's how they did it. At some point, somebody will be in the Federal Reserve and they will take the right action. Right now, we do not have that, unfortunately. So if you have any questions about any of this, I really picked up on the stock prices of the home builders falling so dramatically because they're offering such high purchase incentives, it's killing their profits. And the price of the stock is determined by earnings. When you're spending your earnings in much higher incentives, the stock price will drop. So I really picked up on that, and I thought I'm going to discuss this in the context of the rest of what's going on in the housing market. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have if you want to post those in the comments. I really want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.